beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain,
for purple mountain majesties,
all of the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
My name is Rod Cascal, and today we're going to learn about Veterans Day. Veterans Day is always celebrated on November 11th, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. First, I need to tell you what a veteran is. A veteran is someone who has served in the military, also known as the armed forces. At Veterans Day, it's a day where we honor those who have served in the military. Did you know that the military has 5 parts, also known as branches? The Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. Together, they all serve to defend our freedom. Kind of a big deal. Respect. So if you meet a veteran, ask them what branch they served in, and then tell them they're awesome. The reason we celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th is that is the day that World War I ended in 1918 at 11 o'clock on the 11th day in the 11th month. An armistice was signed to end the war. An armistice is an agreement between 2 opposing sides that ends a war. Everyone was so glad that the war was over that the next year, in 1919, 100 years ago today, the U.S. declared November 11th as Armistice Day to celebrate the ending of the war. It was called Armistice Day every year until 1954, when President Dwight D. Eisenhower changed it from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, because he wanted to honor all service members, past and present. And that is why we celebrate Veterans Day, to honor all service members who have served our country to defend our freedom. Pretty cool. And that's your lesson on this day in kid history. Broadcast Cal out.
Servants on and bowing in my shadow.
impress upon you, when you listen to all of these veterans talking, telling you what they had to do, remember one thing. We did it for you. We did it for God and country. It was world war. It was world war. Think about this seriously. You are all Americans. A lot of people don't seem to realize one thing that we have. All of us veterans, when we were overseas, we would see the United States flag flying from ships or from camps. We would see that flag and we said, that's home. Too many of the people today, when they look at the American flag, they do not honor it. That flag is America. It's you. When you see that flag flying, and you see it flying in the breeze, I want you to remember one thing. It's not the breeze that's blowing that flag. That flag is flying in the breeze from the last breaths of every American serviceman who loved and died for this country. Honor the country, honor your flag.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. To support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. And to bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. That I will obey. The orders of. The President of the United States. And the orders of. Those officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.
We celebrate Veterans Day on the anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice that began on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The timing of this holiday is quite deliberate in terms of historical fact. But somehow it always seems quite fitting to me that this day comes deep in autumn when the colors are muted and the days seem to invite contemplation. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise, but most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. And all we can do is remember. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. In memory of those who gave the last full measure of devotion, may our efforts to achieve lasting peace gain strength. Let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and borne by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died.
In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
I guess was always brought up to believe in this country.
The greatest country on earth.
I've always had an immense amount of pride in our country. I'm a third-generation military member. As a kid, I wanted to serve. It just makes sense to me. It's home.
I was 18 the 21st of April in '43. 2 weeks later, I got my letter from Mr. Presidente. This picture here was taken on the outer edge of Manila. The USS Munda was a baby flat-top carrier, first one they built. Picked us up in San Diego and we took off for the South Pacific.
I chose to go to Vietnam, serve my country. That was me when I first went over to Vietnam. We did a lot of traveling in Hueys. Four on each side, sitting out with your feet hanging out.
I believe in freedom. It's part of my, it's part of my values, and so, in a word, freedom. And I believe that's worth dying for. That's, at the end of the day, that's what I believe.
These all in here was taken on Mindanao. The next morning they called out a detail of 12 people. We loaded on a aircraft and flew to Bougainville, and that's where I joined a squadron at. VMSB 236 was a dive bomber squadron. We was one of the first groups that had the M1 rifle.
What unifies our military is, at the end of the day, it's what we do is, it's not a game. Ultimately, there's a loss of life, and I think my first real experience serving in the AOR and serving in a combat arena I really came to understand that when a life is involved, everybody will drop everything, and like I said, there is not a question about who they are, but how can we help them.
It's a Marine Corps insignia is what it is. I don't care what branch of the service you're in, you're all there for the same reason.
We all fight for the common goal, and that is, one, our nation, and two, for each other.
Oh. Yeah, this is a combat infantry badge. And this is the wings where I was an airborne trooper, a paratrooper. Every once in a while, people will still come up to me, and if they see my Vietnam hat or whatever, and say thank you for your service. And it still means a lot.
You know, when people thank me, I always remind them it's an honor to serve. Everything that I have in my life and everything that I have in my family came from service.
I'd do it all over again if I had to. Every Veterans Day, the older I get, I think the more important it comes to me.
Veterans Day means to me is a time to honor everybody who came forward. They were willing to pay up to everything, including their life.
That's my Bronze Star with V for Valor, and that's the Air Medal.
So we're celebrating those 1%ers that recognize the need to serve our nation. My name is Troy Taylor, and I'm a veteran of the Global War on Terror.
Stephen A. Evans, a veteran of the Vietnam War.
Richard Wayne Motter. I'm a veteran of World War II.
My name is Edie Meeks, and I have been a nurse for almost 50 years. I've worked at Northern Westchester Hospital for 5 years. I always wanted to be a nurse. I never really thought of being anything else. For many years, I didn't talk about the war. In fact, most people didn't know that I had been a nurse that served there. I joined in February of 1968. I went to the Army recruiter and said I'd like to join the Army and I'd like to go to Vietnam. And the recruiter almost passed out. Nobody does that. In July of 1968, I arrived in Saigon, and that's where I worked for the first 6 months at the 3rd Field Hospital. And then I went to Pleiku, January 69 to July of 69. You pretty much lived and breathed, at least we did, the ward that we worked on, because we were there all the time. You knew the doctors knew you. You know, if you needed to hang blood and they were busy in the OR and couldn't write the order, you could do it and they would back you up. When I was over there, I really didn't want to get to know the fellas. Now I can say that, but what I really didn't want to know was their names. I think I couldn't carry the burden of having all of those guys in my head. I had to take care of them and let them go. There was a patient that came in. He had been trapped under a helicopter for 3 days when he was shot down. They rescued him. They brought him to 3rd Field Hospital. And before they took him to the OR, he died. I was so filled with rage that I had to put him aside because I couldn't handle the rage. Why didn't they get him into the OR faster? Why didn't? Here was a kid who had fought and fought and fought to stay alive. And I think what happened was he came home to the OR and he felt safe. And then he died. It was things like that that you just had to put aside and say, it's piling up too much. You know, there were too many of them. The Huey helicopter was the helicopter that brought most of our patients to us. To me, the Huey just meant total bad news. But, you know, for the guys in the field, it meant, thank God we're going home. So that it was like we had a reverse perspective of what this helicopter was all about. And for many things, the nurses had a reverse perspective. because the guys might have seen that they won a battle. We never did. We just saw what was injured. We didn't see any victories at all. The only respite that we had was seeing some of these guys get better and go home, and that was it. In Vietnam, I was an intensive care nurse, and now I'm an operating room nurse. And it's the kind of nursing where you actually can do something that shows, an ending, so that when you're operating on somebody, you hopefully are fixing what's wrong.
So were you based at a hospital, or were you out in the battlefields?
Actually, we
Sometimes.
were
Or
all
did you-
at the hospital, but the hospitals were in the battlefields. I mean, we were rocketed almost every night.
Wow.
And we had sandbags and,
Edie, why are you wearing green in this one if you were white at the hospital?
Every other hospital in Vietnam wore fatigues.
Oh, okay.
And it was because you were out in the dirt. But the 3rd Field Hospital was supposed to be the showcase hospital of Vietnam. And all of the congressmen and, the fancy people would come there. And so they wanted us to wear white uniforms, which was really kind of strange. It was kind of bizarre, because you could go home and your uniform would just be a mess.
Right. Because
you still had the same patients that everybody else did.
Patients from the
Right.
battlefield.
Right. One of the things about the Army Nurse Corps then was, unlike today, is that we really weren't soldiers. We were nurses who joined the Army to help the guys who were in the Army. Whereas today, they really are soldiers, the women who are in the Army Nurse Corps.
You look like a soldier here.
Yeah.
I think what's helped me the most in nursing since Vietnam is the fact that nothing bothers me. One of the things that we were taught in school was that you can handle anything. Doesn't matter what happens, you can handle it. Everything's put into perspective when you've had a year like that. My name is Edie Meeks, and I was a nurse in Vietnam.
There are more than 21 million veterans in the United States. They are the men and women who have served on active duty in any branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, in peacetime or war. More than 2 million are women. Veterans represent about 6.5% of the total U.S. population. Around 1% of American women and around 12% of American men are veterans. 16.1 million living U.S. veterans served during at least one war, while 5.2 million served during peacetime. Of the 16 million Americans who served in World War II, about 620,000 are still alive. From the Revolutionary War to the Global War on Terror, U.S. veterans have served in 12 major wars and numerous smaller military conflicts, from fighting Barbary pirates to peacekeeping in the former Yugoslavia to hunting down Osama bin Laden. And our veterans' role in U.S. history goes far beyond the battlefield. 26 of 44 presidents have been veterans. The Revolutionary War produced 4 U.S. presidents, while no fewer than 7 presidents were veterans of the Civil War. 97 members of the current U.S. Congress served or are currently serving in the military, including 81 members of the House of Representatives and 16 senators. 1/3 of all Supreme Court justices throughout history have served in the military, with the majority of those serving in times of war. And of the 330 current and former astronauts in the U.S. space program, 219 served in the armed forces. During peacetime, our military forces have provided humanitarian aid and disaster relief to areas in need at home and abroad. During Hurricane Katrina, for example, nearly 70,000 troops, active duty, reserve, and National Guard, were involved in what is said to be the largest relief effort in U.S. history. These are just a few of the many contributions we can thank our veterans for, from our nation's beginnings until today.
9 million Americans served during the period of the Vietnam War. They represented 10% of their generation. 6 million of them were volunteers. They were the oldest and best educated force America ever sent into harm's way. 97% would be honorably discharged. And today, the vast majority of them testify with their actions and their words that they are proud of their service and would serve again if called. November 14th, 1965, 10:48 a.m. Elements of the 7th Cavalry touched down at Landing Zone X-Ray. Within 30 minutes, the Battle of the Ai Drang began, the first major battle fought by the American Army in Vietnam. Over 3 harrowing days, vastly outnumbered American forces would hold out and ultimately repel enemy forces. American forces would never lose a major engagement during the ensuing 8 years of combat operations. Known as the Wall, the Vietnam Memorial stands in honor of those who served in the Vietnam War. The names of the men and women who gave their lives are inscribed in the order they were taken from us. 58,286 names. The youngest was Marine Private First Class Dan Bullock at 15 years of age, and the oldest was Navy Petty Officer First Class Kenna Taylor at 62. There are 3 sets of fathers and sons, 1 set of stepbrothers, 39 pairs of brothers, 8 women, 16 clergy, and 155 Medal of Honor recipients. And let us not forget, there are still more than 1,600 missing and unaccounted for personnel. The French were in Vietnam before the Americans and lost more than 70,000 lives. More than 400,000 Allied troops served with the American forces. Joining as allies with the United States were the Republic of Korea, Thailand, the Republic of the Philippines, Australia, and New Zealand. These allies suffered more than 5,000 lives lost during the course of the war. American combat forces left Vietnam in 1973. 2 years later, Saigon fell. Over those last 2 years, without American and Allied combat forces in the region, casualties in Southeast Asia were doubled what they had been during the 10 years prior. To our Vietnam veterans who answered the nation's call to serve, we thank you. Your greatness is etched in history from the battlefields of Southeast Asia to the neighborhoods of hometown America, where you continue to bring blessings and inspiration to your families and your country today. To the families of our Vietnam veterans, we thank you for the greatness of your support, sacrifice, vigilance, and compassion. And to our allies who stood by us 50 years ago, we thank you. The greatness that was earned by this generation never left you, and it never will.
Can I help you?
Just a cup of coffee, please.
Coming right up. Oh, there's no charge.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thanks again.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Do you want to take a picture with the soldier? Can we take a picture?
Sure.
All right, smile. There you go.
Sir, my son would like to ask you a question.
Are you a hero too? That man said you were.
I just served as best I could.
Can we take a picture?
Sure.
All right, smile big. What do you say?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Can I get you a refill?
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
So, my daughter's home from college this weekend. She says to me, "Dad, why are you putting up the flag?" I didn't know what to tell her. So I said, "I don't know, baby. It's a nice day. Seemed like a good thing to do." She nodded, walked back in the house. I'm not that great with words. But I thought about it, her question, while I was out mowing the grass. This is what I wish I would have told her. I'm putting up the flag because it's Saturday. And later on, maybe I'll invite the neighbors, Charlie and Dee, over, and we'll grill something. And Charlie and I will get in a good-natured argument about politics or whatever, because we never agree about much of anything, Charlie and I. I'm putting up the flag because Charlie and I can do that here. We can disagree about politics or religion or whatever, without either of us worrying that somebody's going to come haul us away. And then we'll grill some burgers. Or maybe we'll go cheaper. Hot dogs. Around here, almost everybody can afford a hot dog because we're blessed in this country. Yeah, blessed. That's why I'm putting up the flag. And then tomorrow, we'll go to church and we'll worship. And I'm putting up the flag because around here, you can think about God, and talk about God, and worship God, and nobody's going to tell you you can't. And I'm putting up the flag because the neighbor kid's in the Marines, and I want his parents to know that I'm proud of him. And I'm putting up the flag because it's a nice flag for a nice place. It's not a perfect place, not even close, but it's my place. I'm glad it is. So, I'm putting up the flag because it's Saturday and because I can.
Here in America, we will have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it says that all of the people, regardless of whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or anything in between, it doesn't matter if you are black or white or Asian or Indian or any other ethnic group, it doesn't matter what your country of origin is or the spelling of your last name. It does not matter if you're Catholic or Protestant, Muslim or Jew, and it doesn't matter if you don't believe at all. It does not matter if you're rich or poor or common or famous. In this country, in these United States, under those colors of red, white, and blue, in this country, all Americans are created free and equal, and we will rise or fall based on our merit, and we'll be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. That is the core organizing principle of the United States of America, and that is why we fight.
I lost some friends over there. I lost 3 really good friends in Vietnam. My job is to remember them as a veteran. You know, one of the things that people fear is that they'll die and nobody cares. And yeah, I care.
When the state of Texas dedicates its Vietnam Veterans Monument, every single seat will be taken. But veterans Don Dorsey and James Hart won't be focused on the crowd that's in attendance. They'll be thinking about 3,417 empty chairs that will never be filled.
James and I are making dog tags for every Texan killed in Vietnam.
There was one that really struck me, and it was early on when I started doing it. It was a young soldier that was killed Christmas Day, and all I could think about was what his family was going to think. And that one really struck me really hard. To imagine that their Christmas will probably never be the same after that. It's just to have that day and the death of their son, it was really hard for me.
Letter by letter by letter, James and Don have stamped out a replica dog tag for each Texan who did not come home from the Vietnam War. Machines just like the one here in James's kitchen identified every soldier who went over there. Now, some 40 years later, this outdated method has brought these men even closer to their brothers in arms.
There are electric machines that you can make this thing, knock it out in no time, but this is personal. I'm touching every one of these guys, and they're touching me.
It was really very personal. It's not just a piece of metal anymore. You're actually reading the name. You're reading about where he grew up or where he came from. And that, to me, changes everything.
Here's Jerry Blackburn from Bonham, Texas. Ted Bishop, Lufkin, Texas. You don't even know these guys.
They're my brothers. I know that. And that's all I need to know.
The hero tags, as they've been appropriately named, will be entombed inside the base of the Capitol Monument. These soldiers will forever have a home as part of Texas tribute to their service. But as Don and James worked on the project, they felt a growing sense of inadequacy. Even a proper burial and a state ceremony fell short of honoring the ultimate sacrifice. And so they set out to make a second set of tags.
We wanted to show with this exhibit that we still respect the casualties. They haven't been forgotten.
This time, Don and James put the tags on display for all to see in the Vietnam Heroes exhibit.
It's been traveling around the state. It's been to the major cities, and primarily the cities and areas where there's been a lot of casualties. These guys died 40, 45 years ago, and they came home at a time when nobody cared. It's kind of nice to bring it back and say, hey, we do care.
If you try to undertake something like this, you can't walk away undetached. It becomes a part of you. It really does. I bet Don sees dog tags in his sleep.
A curtain of dog tags hangs down, dancing and shimmering to draw your eye. You are supposed to touch them, just like their makers did. You're supposed to read them and think about the lives these men once led. You're supposed to meet more than 3,000 heroes, just like Don Dorsey and James Hart did when they honored them.
What's important to me is the fact that we said goodbye to them, the final goodbye, to actually hope that they heard it and know that we meant it. You know, that's the important thing to me.
Sat talking with his dad. He said the teacher pulled out a book, taught us all about the flag, about the red, white, and blue, and how each color was defined, and why we stand hand over heart, pledge allegiance every time. His dad pulled out a box with a folded flag. Said, trust me, son, it means way more than that. It's more than a flag or stars and stripes. Your head waves for the ones who died gave their lives so you and I could live our own. It stands for truth, it stands for grace. These colors don't run out to this day. Carry sacrifice and scars, and every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag. You say to your granddad fought in Vietnam back in '65. 352nd dropping bombs to lessen the threats he had to fight. Got sent home in '71 with one less leg and a purple heart. He used to say, I gave some, but some gave all, and that's what we're fighting for. They gave your grandma this box on the day he passed. Fired 21 shots and fought it up that flank. It's more than a flag, stars and stripes. Yeah, it waves for the ones who died, gave their lives so you and I could live our own. It stands for truth, it stands for grace. These colors don't run out to this day. Carry sacrifice and scars, and every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag. It's there when we fight, it's there when we fall, foreign shores and right at home. Yeah, you know it's true. That's why we bleed red, white, and blue. Than a flag or stars and stripes. It waves for the ones who died and gave their lives so you and I can live our own. It stands for truth, it stands for grace. These colors don't run empty this day. Carry sacrifice and scars, and every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag.